Hello, 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 everybody. Welcome to my kitchen. If you see a cat, he belongs. He likes to make debuts, but I told him to stay out of my kitchen, so we'll see what happens. He's on the bed right now. So I'll give it a few more seconds. See my little mouse? I've gotten fancy now. It's the perks of working from home. Quarantine means you got to be at home. I got all my work stuff at home. All right. Let me turn up my volume a little bit. All right, so we are making buttermilk biscuits today. It should be exciting. If you notice on the ingredient list, I left some variations. So if you don't want to do just plain buttermilk biscuits, you can mix in some things. I'm actually going to do both. Not going to make a double batch though, but I'm going to do a couple of them just plain buttermilk, and then I'm going to do a couple of them to have jalapeno and cheddar in them because I am a fan of a jalapeno cheddar biscuit. All of a sudden, don't know why. My dryer is singing. Excuse that if you hear it. Hi, Nan. All right, so first things first, we want to preheat our oven. Our oven should be on 400. All right, so you get that preheating and ready to go. If you don't have your ingredients gathered, go ahead and get those gathered. So you're going to need the flour, you're going to need baking powder, you're going to need some sugar, some salt, and then a stick of butter, cold. It can come straight out of the refrigerator, so you don't have to have that sitting at room temp. Name of the game with biscuits and any flaky pastry dough that you're making is cold. So you want everything to be cold. Your butter needs to be cold, and then your buttermilk should be cold. So if you do not have buttermilk and you are making buttermilk, I would say to go ahead and do that now. So I posted it on my wall. It should be just a cup of plain milk into a container, a couple of tablespoons of white vinegar, stir it up, and then just let it sit until we get time to do that. Some other tricks, again, you could use sour cream, you could use yogurt if you had it as well too, or you can just use plain milk. Again, the buttermilk gives it that flavor, of course, that delicate mouthfeel as well too. But I know these are hard times, so some people might not have buttermilk. So again, we'll just use what we have as well. So we will start first things first. I would say grab your stick of butter from the fridge. I just so happen to have mine on the counter. And then what we're going to do is we are going to cut this butter into little cubes. Okay. So you want about 1/2-inch cubes because we're going to incorporate these into the flour. So we don't want them so big that they can't incorporate well, but we also don't want them so small that they just disappear into the flour. So easiest way I usually do it is cut the bar into 3. But let's see here. I'm just going to go ahead and cut a cube right quick so you can see what the size is that we're looking for. Again, so it should be like a 1/2-inch cube. So I just cubed one. So this is what I'm looking for. This should be about the size of your butter cubes. So take the time to cube up your butter now. And remember, like I said, straight out the fridge, cold. You don't have to have this sitting out at room temperature. As a matter of fact, you don't want it at room temperature because, again, you don't want it to just blend into your flour and disappear in your flour. So go ahead and cut up your butter into little cubes. Irons in here. And then once you have it cut up into cubes, we'll go from there. I'm looking for my towel. Here it is. I was trying to wonder why everybody forgot about the good old dish towel and everybody was running out to buy paper towels. We don't use dish towels anymore. Love me a dish towel. All right, so I'm going to actually put this to the side. I cheated a little. So I already have some butter that I cut up and cubed. And so it's hanging out in my fridge. So again, just remember you're taking a stick of butter cold and you are cubing it. You want it about 1-inch cubes. So your butter should be about that size. And we'll have that out and ready to go. I'm going to stick this to the side. And I actually have some that has been hanging out of my fridge since I woke up a little early. All right, while you guys are still cubing butter, I'm going to get my flour ready to go. Again, we're using all-purpose flour. Move this out the way. And this over here. Sharp knives out of the way. All right, so we should be good and cubed. Butter should be cubed and ready to go. Just stick it in a little bowl and hang it out to the side. If you want to, you can stick it in the refrigerator to keep it cold, but we should move fairly quickly. So it should be okay sitting out on the counter if you want to as well. Next thing you're going to do is you're going to get yourself a good sized bowl, enough to work in. We will wind up inverting onto the counter and working the dough on the counter, but you want something good and sturdy and a lot of volume space so you can put everything that you need in there. You are going to measure out 2 cups of all-purpose flour. Again, remember we're using our dry measuring cups, not our liquid measuring cups. And you want 2 cups. So go in, make sure you're leveling off your flour, okay? I weirdly always keep a butter knife in my flour thing just so I remember to always level it off. And you want 2 cups straight into your bowl. Give it a tap, give it a swoosh. 2 cups of flour straight into your bowl. All right, leave your flour out because you're going to need to dust your counter space a little bit in order to roll out the biscuits. So don't put your flour away and make sure that it's still empty. All right, so you should have 2 cups in your bowl ready to go. The next thing we're going to add to our bowl is 1 tablespoon of sugar, okay? And just plain white sugar. I happen to have a little here, and you just want 1 tablespoon of it. Again, you want to make sure it's nice and leveled. And that goes right into your flour as well. All right, after that, we're gonna add 1 teaspoon of salt. And then lastly, you're going to add 2 teaspoons of baking powder, not baking soda, baking powder. And that's 2 teaspoons going in. All right, and those are all of your dry ingredients. So again, in a bowl, you have 2 cups of all-purpose flour, 1 tablespoon of granulated white sugar, 2 teaspoons of baking powder, and 1 teaspoon of salt. Grab a fork or a whisk if you have it, and you're going to give everybody a good mix to get everybody happy and acquainted with each other. All right, while you get everybody mixed up, kind of make a well in the center. So push a little bit of the flour to the side so you have a little bit of a hole. You don't want to see the bottom, you still want some flour down there, but you want to make yourself a good well because we're going to pour our buttermilk in there next. All right, I'm going to grab my buttermilk from the fridge. Shockingly, this was the 1 milk that was left in my store. There was no flour. There was nothing else. But there was a whole 2 rows of buttermilk. All right. Got our liquid measuring cup here. We are going to measure out 3/4 cup of buttermilk. So for those of you that made your own buttermilk, you should have made a cup of it. You're going to, glass bowl, doesn't matter. Glass bowl, whatever kind of bowl you have. I just have a glass bowl. Just something big enough to mix everything. If you made your own buttermilk, you're going to want to measure out 3/4 cup of it, okay? So you don't need the full cup that you made. That extra little bit that you have, throw it in some pancakes. They'll be delicious. I made some blueberry muffins yesterday. I threw a little bit in there as well too, just so I wasn't wasting so much buttermilk. Again, you need 3/4 cup of buttermilk, cold, out the fridge. All right. Okay, so now you're going to take your buttermilk and you're going to put it into the well that you made in the center. And make sure I get all that buttermilk out. Okay. And then I'm just going to use the same fork that I mixed everything up with. And starting from the outside, bring some of the flour and turn the bowl as you go. You're going to start incorporating the buttermilk and the flour together. Okay. So again, as you're turning, you're bringing things to the center. It's not a vigorous going at it. I'm just giving the bowl a turn and moving the fork along with it, starting to get the flour wet and incorporated with the buttermilk. You want a shaggy dough before we turn it out on the counter. And that means that you don't have a lot of loose flour at the bottom of the bowl, but also everything hasn't completely come together in the bowl. So if you have a little bit left at the bottom, that's fine. But you want to get everything good and ready to go. So this is what my dough looks like. Come a little closer for you guys. All right. So that's what everything looks like in here. Thank you. I think Angela got this for me. All right, so we're gonna do one more thing before we turn out. Your butter goes in. Now, little secret, I got ahead of myself and added the buttermilk before I added the butter, but that's fine. What you want to do is you want to incorporate the butter in here. So now it's time to get in there with your hands, right? So you're going through and incorporating everybody. This is when you want to give it a good mix. I mean, I say it's okay to have some chunks of butter in there because that only makes your flaky layers. So go ahead and give it a push. Once you see everything start to come together. So again, I have a bit bigger of a mass now. Trying to get it off my fingers so I could come closer. So I give everything a couple of good pushes. The butter is in there as well too. I'm going to put a little bench flour on my board here. Not a lot, maybe a tablespoon worth. All right. And just give it around your counter like that. And then go ahead and turn this out to the counter. All right. So again, you can give it, I'm going to say we're going to do about 5 turns. So again, you're grabbing everything, the butter's in there, you're flipping it on itself. 1, let me move this so we can see what I'm doing here. So again, I'm taking it, I'm turning, pushing it up. 2, turning, folding it over itself. 3, turning, folding it over itself. 4, 1 more, turn, fold it over itself. 5. All right, so if you have a weird looking shape, this is where we're going to try to get it as much into a rectangle as we possibly can. So I'm going to use a rolling pin. If you don't have a rolling pin, I'm fancy for using a glass jar that I have, a wine bottle that I have, or you can just take some time to flatten it out. Being a little lazy this morning. So I'm going to throw a little bit of flour on my rolling pin, and I'm going to go ahead and start rolling her out. If you notice your dough is sticking at the bottom, just lift it up. Put some more of that flour down there so it doesn't stick to the counter. All right, and then you're looking for a rectangle. It just makes it easier when you're cutting out the biscuits. So I kind of work it a little bit as well too. I have a little bench scraper, so that kind of helps me as well too. But again, your hands work perfectly fine. So you want it about 3/4 of an inch thick. All right, if you see it start to crack a little bit, just push it back together, you know, and all will be fine. All right, let's see, I think I'm almost there. So it's not going to be the world's biggest, right? This recipe doesn't yield a lot. You should probably get, I would say, a good 8 to 12, depending on what size you're going to cut them out to be and how thick you want them. So again, I went about 3/4 of an inch thick. It's about halfway up my thumb here. All right. Next is this magic thing called cutting. So I happen to have a cutter. I have them laying around, but for forever, my best friend was a glass. Okay. So I would take a little glass that I had, simple glass. You don't want the lip to be so thick because again, it'll push down the biscuits a bit too much and start to smush them. But I used to use just the glass. And again, even when you're going through and doing it, you still want to make sure you flour the lip of your glass before you start cutting out your biscuits. So I have a little cutter here. I'm going to use the non-fluted edge. I don't want my biscuits that fancy. But okay, I'm going to dip it in just to get it nice and floured. Start in the corner, give a push, slight turn. Your biscuit should come out and you should have it ready to go. Those go onto a baking sheet. All right, and I'm going to get another one. Pushed out, little turn. So you don't want the biscuits touching on the sheet, okay? You want some space in between them. Let's see here. Am I going to be able to get the phone out? All right, so I've cut out all of them that I could cut out, and I got 5. So with the scraps, you're going to gather those back up, all right? And remember, work with the tips of your hands, right? So the tips of your hands are a bit cooler than the palms of your hands, and we don't want to melt that butter in there. So as much as you can work with the tips of your hands, give it a little few turns on itself, and try to work it back into that square or rectangle shape so you can get them ready to cut out as well too. I need a little more flour. All right, I'm rolling still. And I'm back to cutting here. I think I can maybe get one more out of here. So I know I told you guys I was doing a variation, but I just kept rolling. We got all straight buttermilk biscuits. If you wanted to make a flavored biscuit, as you're mixing everything, that would have been the time when you wanted to go ahead and put everything in there. Seems this morning I'm just rolling. So give that a little turn. This one might be the ugly duckling. I'm okay with that. All right, so out of this, I got 8 biscuits. This right here, not enough to roll into another biscuit. You can throw it out the side as a little knob or dispose of it. So here we go. We got 6 biscuits on the tray. They're nice and evenly spaced out to give each other a little bit of room to grow. I didn't put anything down on my sheet tray because there's so much butter in here, they shouldn't stick. If you feel like they're going to stick to your sheet tray, you can spray a little nonstick spray on there. You could also bake them on a piece of parchment if you wanted to. This pan is usually pretty good for me, so I'm not going to put anything on there. A couple of things from here. If you did not want to make all of these biscuits right now, you could take this or take as many as you don't want to make and put them in the freezer, right? So you want to put them on a plate, put them on a sheet tray, and put them in the freezer until they're frozen. Then you can put them in a Ziploc bag, and you have pull-and-eat biscuits. You can bake them at 400 frozen straight from the freezer, and they'll be good to go as well too. You could also sit them out and let them defrost a little bit as well too if you didn't want to bake them frozen from the freezer. But again, if you did not need all 8 of these biscuits, now would be the time. Like I said, you can put some into the freezer and freeze them and then put them in a bag for a later time. I am probably going to do that. So I'm going to take a couple out because it's just me here and I don't need 8 biscuits. So I'm going to take a couple out just to be able to use them for a later time. All right, so I'm going to make 4. Again, if you have a house full, quarantine, brunch is going down, go ahead and make all of them. I just don't eat all of them in the house. Theo doesn't eat biscuits, and so it's just us. Next thing, a couple of variations I've seen people do. You can brush the top with buttermilk. You can brush the top with butter. Once you put butter on there, if you wanted to sprinkle a little bit of salt and pepper on there, so you could have some savory biscuits that way as well too. You have some options there. I'm going to take a little bit of butter and melt it, and I'm going to brush them on the tops of my biscuits before I put them in the oven. All right, give my hands a little wash. Be right back. All right. Oh, I need a few more seconds. All right, if you're brushing butter on the top, I have a nice little rubber brush here. You could use a spoon and just use the back of the spoon and do it that way as well too. All right, I am nice and melty. And take it, I'm going to nicely brush the top of the biscuits. All right, and then these are going to go into your 400-degree oven. Make sure you set them down there, and you can set a timer if you like. I'd say go about 12 minutes, and then start checking them there, right? So you want to make sure you see a nice rise. They're going to start to get golden on the top. Obviously, oven heats vary, so they can go anywhere from 12 to 15 minutes. So if you start checking at 12, you can kind of see what you're looking at there. Remember, you don't want to go peeking in the oven and messing up the oven temperature in there. So if you have that good old oven light, you can check it that way as well too. But those are going to go in and bake for about 12 minutes. Anybody have any questions about anything? I'm working on some things over here. Bread is coming up. I have a nice sourdough starter that's been going. We're on day 4. She's looking nice. She's fermenting. It's going to make some nice bread loaves. All right, I'm going to leave this melted butter here because butter on the top, why not too? And again, you can do different things, all right? It's a basic buttermilk biscuit recipe. What are we going to do the salty caramel cheesecake? So cheesecake has to bake in itself for an hour. So I don't think that that's something that I could do live. I don't think you guys would want to stare at me for an hour while a cheesecake is baking. So I think what I'm going to do for that, as soon as I can get a hold of some cream cheese as well, is maybe make a video and post that for you guys so you have that, versus doing a live stream for that. So just as soon as I can get some cream cheese from my grocery store, I'll post something up and let you guys know that I'm working on the video, and then I'll post that video for you so you can go at your own pace. Again, I don't think you guys want to stare at me for an hour while a cheesecake bakes. Back to our biscuits. It's a basic biscuit dough recipe, right? So at the moment where you are incorporating the butter into the flour and then you're adding your buttermilk, that's the time when you can add other flavors. Originally I was going to do some jalapeno cheddar biscuits. So I sliced up some jalapeno, put some cheese in there, some cheddar cheese in there, a little garlic powder, a little onion powder, a little pepper, and then you would go and mix it all together, turn it out, and then start doing it that way. If you wanted to turn these into sweet biscuits, you would up the sugar content. Be careful though. I think I've done about 2 tablespoons of sugar in there, and then added some blueberries. For those of you from the South, we love a blueberry biscuit. You could do that way as well too. And then, so variations are endless. I did see a pretty neat recipe for sour cream and onion biscuits. Those are really neat too as well. They were a cup biscuit though. I'm a fan of square biscuits. I don't know why people aren't a fan of square biscuits. So they took green onions, they took sour cream instead of the buttermilk, and they mixed that into the dough. Then they cut them in squares and baked them that way. You still get that flaky goodness, but I think that would be really neat to have a sour cream and onion biscuit. I think I might give that a go. The other thing that I did yesterday that I've had some requests for, I made some blueberry whole wheat muffins. So these were fine and good. They have that crunchy turbinado sugar on the top of it as well too. So I've had some requests for those. Berries are starting to come into season. We're getting towards summer, so we'll think of some things to do for that as well too. Can you prep the cheesecake and we can bake it on our own? Or can you prep the cheesecake and have one already baked to show us how to decorate it? We'll decorate the cheesecake. I'll think through that some more. Again, I can't even find cream cheese in my store yet. So hopefully within the next maybe 2 weeks, we'll see, and I will have wrapped my head around that as well too. I'm going to turn the light on and give a peek see here. All right. So you should have some good rising happening. And they should be starting. Again, you don't want to open up the oven too much. You don't want to change the temperature in there. But you should also start to smell the butter as well too. It smells a little heavenly in here. Put those back. The cat has been eyeing them. He can't eat those either. I'm going to go ahead and throw these in the freezer. Again, remember, if you didn't want to make all of them, now's the time to freeze. Throw a little cling wrap on the top. I'm actually going to put them on a smaller tray so I can stick them in my freezer. But then again, these wind up being exactly like the biscuits you would buy from Pillsbury in the freezer aisle. The same thing is with them when you go to cook them. You preheat your oven to 400, put them on a baking sheet, and they'll be ready to go frozen from the oven as well, frozen from the freezer as well. So just make sure you put a little cling wrap if you're going to freeze some of them. And then just leave them in there for a couple of hours until they're frozen all the way through. My freezer is full. All right, let's see here. Looking good in there. All right. Another thing, if you didn't want to leave such big chunks of butter in there like I did, the steps you could have done when you put the flour in is to massage your butter into your flour. So again, fingertips is the name of the game. So essentially, give you a little example. Put a little flour in. Still have some butter somewhere. Here it is. So with the cubes of butter, just gonna take one little pat of butter. You put it in there. And I use, again, the tips of my fingers to kind of massage the butter into the flour. Okay, so you don't want it to where it disappears. But again, that's another way you get those flaky layers. All right, so I'm using literally the tips of my fingers, massaging the butter a little bit into the flour, and then it starts to look like wet sand. Okay, so that's how you incorporate the butter more into the flour if you wanted really, really, really flaky biscuits. But you want to stop at a certain point, right? So like I said, you don't want it so much where you don't see the butter anymore. You want some nice good pieces of it still there in your flour. So you could do that step before you mix in your wet ingredients as well too, and that helps with the layers as well. Now that I'm nice and floury, do a little rinsing rinse. All right. Your nose is telling me some things are happening here. All right, we're almost there. Looking good. My oven runs a little bit low, so I might take the full 15 minutes. We can talk toppers. That's a great question, right? Apple butter. Apple butter is a great thing to put on them. I have become a fan of a brand of pimento cheese that's down here. So usually what I'll do is I'll make the jalapeno cheddar biscuits, and then I'll put pimento cheese in it and eat it that way as well too. Apple butter works, plain butter works, jelly works. If you get real fancy, you want to put some maple syrup on them. That works as well too. Flour. Probably one of the best things I've purchased off of Amazon. Little plastic bench scraper. They're heavenly. It's the little things that you never guess make the big things. I'm gonna move all this stuff out the way. This way, when our biscuits come out, we have a landing place for them. All right, that out the way. Woo-hoo. Flower party. Okay. Molasses and honey, yep. I don't know that I've ever had molasses on a biscuit. If anybody goes to a store and you see barley malt syrup, send me a text message because I might need you to send me some. I am itching to go into the bagel making world, and I need some barley malt syrup. Clean up, guys, clean up. My trash can is defeating me. All right. You have flour everywhere. If you have a rack, now will be the time to pull that out. So our biscuits have a place to land when they come out the oven. Gonna wipe down a little bit. Again, after that 12-minute mark, you're gonna want to really start watching your biscuits. Everybody's oven is different. So if you have a really hot oven, you want to make sure that your biscuits don't burn. yours runs a little cool, then you might need the full time. All right, let's see. All right, I got some browning occurring. I'm gonna give those probably about 3 more minutes or so, and then they should be ready to go. Throw this back in the fridge. All right, so if I have any bread makers out there, I need some tips. It's happening soon. As soon as my starter back there is ready, we're going into the world. Nana, King Arthur is out of everything. Their whole website is sold out. I tried to get bread flour from them. I tried to get starter from them. Their whole entire website is sold out. It's crazy. I don't know why. It seems like everybody decided they wanted to bake. And I watched a show yesterday, and it was kind of funny because one of the bakers was like, everybody ran to the store and bought flour and yeast and don't know what to do with it. It's like, you know what? You're probably right. But yes, King Arthur was the first thing that I went to and looked. They're also doing limits on how many things you can buy through the website. So I know some of you guys are going to stores and they're maxing you out at 2 things. King Arthur Flour website is also doing the same thing. Amazon also has no flour. I've tried. All right. You know, I'm going to give these a turn just because I know the front of my oven goes a little bit higher than the back. And then, excuse me, because I know my fire alarm is going to go off. I have the worst fire alarm ever. It's literally right there in my kitchen, and when you open the oven, it thinks the house is on fire. It's the weirdest thing ever. All right. Crack that open a little bit. Oops. All right, might need probably about 2 more minutes. All right, anybody got any other questions? Anybody doing anything fun while you're home? I'm running out of ideas. I've cleaned things, I've rearranged things, I've colored things. I've baked too many things, guys. It's a shame I can't mail it out. But now I'm learning to bake in smaller quantities. All right, so I'm going to see how fast I can pull these out before the fire alarm goes off. Because again, it's super finicky. All right, guys, we're all in this together. Do this. All right, I think I made it. I'm probably going to say that and it's going to go off. 6. Anybody work for a housing company, please think about the placement of the fire alarms in the house. Every time. All right, so these are out. They look great. I'm going to throw them on top of the rack, let them cool. I am going to grab some jelly. That's the route that I'm going to go. At this point, once they're out, if you wanted to add a little bit more butter on the top, be my guest. I have a little bit still left, so that little brushy brush. All right. Plate. I'll burn my life away here. Oh, doesn't matter. Nice fluffy greatness. You see all those layers there? You should literally be able to just crack that open. Ooh, hot buttery biscuits. So I'm probably getting ready to kill my mouth, but for your viewing pleasure, we're gonna go for it. Take a little spoon. I got a little strawberry jelly. Do I want a little butter in there first? Do I want a little butter in there first? I don't want a little butter in there first. Where's the kniffy? I put the butter away, didn't I? All right, nice hot biscuits. A little butter on there. Oh yeah. Little gels. Hot biscuit down the hatch. Very good. You should get the tangy from the buttermilk. It should be nice and flaky. And again, the more you make them, the faster you make them, I think. And you're good to go. Endless possibilities in the baking world. Hey, Aunt Cindy. So, again, I'll process the salted caramel cheesecake and see which way is the best to do that. But I do have to find some cream cheese in my store first. But in the meantime, I'll think of some different things to maybe do little pre-made videos for. Most raised really nice, but 3 were sad. One, I would make sure our baking powder is still good. I know we can keep baking powder in our cupboards for forever. And then the other thing would be, again, it could have been, and part of this might have been my fault, the butter could have been a little too chunky, so it didn't have enough to act with the oven and lift. But again, they're kind of so simple that once you keep on figuring out which works best for you in your kitchen, you can figure that out as well too. I bought buttermilk, but I left it home. That's funny. Well, hey, you have the replay. I put the recipe up. We have biscuits for dinner and be good to go. So again, I'll process some couple of other things. Maybe if I have some time this week, I'll pre-record the blueberry muffin one, so you guys could have that as well too. If you think of other things, by all means, shoot me a text. You can leave a comment on here. You can subscribe. I don't know why I'm saying this. And then leave me some ideas for what things you want to make next. That's all right. Give it a go. Next time again, before you put the buttermilk in, let's do the butter first, massaging the butter in first. My hands are so heavy that it incorporated right in. But it may be that you need to, before you add the buttermilk, go in, measure up your dry ingredients, put the cube butter in, massage it into the flour, then add the buttermilk and go from there. That should wind up flawless. Again, and then just making sure that your baking powder is good and fresh and hasn't expired. All right, guys. Well, again, if you have any different ideas, I'm not making macaroons. Not doing it. Not doing it. Guys, macaroons are the devil. They're delicious and they're very pretty, but they are the devil. And I've made them once in my life, and I made them just to say that I made them. That's a wrap. Macaroons are evil. Plus, I think it's too, hot in Georgia to make them. I have to put, the air conditioning on my house in, 22. I'm not doing macaroons, guys. Plus, I haven't made them in years. I don't even know if I remember how to make them. But all right, happy quarantining. If they didn't turn out great for you the first time, grab another couple cups of flour and give it another go. If you have questions, by all means, let me know. And then I'll see you guys next time. It may not be next weekend because work is going to pick up a lot for me this week. But we'll see what happens. I'll keep you guys updated. But hopefully this gave you a little bit of 45 minutes of a break and a relief. Hopefully you got a little tasty treat after it. And then I'll see you all next time. Bye, everybody.